This is going to be the impact of digital document accessibility. Ian, since we're just a few minutes late, I'll let you just say a few words and get started because I want to make sure you get all your content in. I bet there's going to be a lot of questions. And just so I know, how would you prefer to accept questions? Do you want to do it during or at the end? What do you prefer?
We can do it during, I think.
Okay. All right.
If there ends up being a large flood of them, then maybe we can, I'll let you kind of determine that.
Perfect. All right, then I'm signing off for the moment.
Excellent.
It's all you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. So, yeah, my session, I'd like to give an overview on the impact of digital document accessibility. The agenda that I put together is a brief introduction of myself, as well as Code Mantra, leading into challenges of non-compliant documents, followed then by the impact of accessible documents. And then we'll take some time to look at some fundamentals of creating accessible documents using this platform that we've developed to do that quite easily. So with that, I lead up Code Mantra's accessibility platforms and solutions. I have more than a couple decades worth of experience in content lifecycle. I started my career back in publishing for publishing production for large higher education publishers like Pearson and John Wiley and Sons. So I started with content back at that time, and then made a transition to the digital side when XML and EPUBs and those types of things were becoming a need. But then about 6 years ago, we made a commitment to delivering digital documents, accessible documents. The reason that is we have been in document process automation since about 2004, transforming one file format to another. Could be PDF to XML, to EPUB, Word to XML. What that did was that gave us a vast variety of experience with document types, as well as the structure that's required for those file types. The reason I talk about structure is fundamental to all of your accessible digital documents. We have a headquarters in Boston, London, and as well as India. I've put some of our customers, a diverse group of customers that we serve on the right-hand side. The reason I have those is to just kind of give an understanding of the different types of documents that we've handled and those that I've supported in their remediation initiatives. We have, again, higher education publishers like Pearson, trade publishers, we have large magazine aggregators, as well as some state and local agencies. So we've done anything from a higher ed, complex, advanced algebra textbook to your meeting minutes, your annual reports, and things like that. So it's given us a broad exposure to various document types. We've processed millions of documents, and there's a few things about accessibility. There's the technical aspects, but then there's also the usability components. We've invested heavily in both. Technology side to help build a platform that allows us and others to remediate documents with ease, but then also a large pool of subject matter experts for the writing of alternative text. We really, again, we wanted to do it right and make any document that we processed highly usable, and we felt that subject matter experts in their respective areas were the key to fulfilling appropriate alternative text. I'm not a chemist, and I would not be able to write appropriate alt text for some chemistry material. Someone in that space would know and be able to use the appropriate language, the right terms, and make it more effective for that end user. So we really did look at all the various expertise required and have supported our services through that. But what I want to talk about with challenges, for non-compliant documents, as sighted readers, we're able to pick up on a lot of visual cues. We've just learned those inherently over time, and the image on the left-hand side is any typical article. I just grabbed this one off the web, but again, we just inherently know that corporate law and accountability reporting is the headline or the title of this particular article. Nothing's explicitly telling us that. We just know because it's at the top, it's in a box, it's bold and bigger than the rest of the text. All of these visual cues are what clues us into the fact that that's the title. Likewise, the two photos of the contributors here, we know that because there's the byline directly below that indicates that they've written this article. The boxed text, we know that that should be read in isolation because it's boxed off. But the only reason we know that is because of the box, and we're able to see that box. And then the reading order for this particular page is 2-column. Again, we just inherently know that we would need to start on the left and cycle up to the right and then finish off down that column. We also pick up on the fact that there are various sections or headings within this because of the bolded text in between the paragraphs. But on the right-hand side would be a representation of what a user would experience if this document was not compliant, not accessible. It really just becomes a long string of text. They have no indication of what chunk of this text is a title. They have no indication of that boxed off text that it should be read separately or out of the main text flow. And so there's a lot of, they lose all of those visual cues which give context to the information or the content within the document. So what happens once a document is made accessible or is produced accessibly? It gives all of that information to them. They're able to now know that corporate law and accountability is the topmost heading, the title for this document. They also have alternative descriptions for the images that were present, the logo of Bloomberg Law, photographs of Dennis and Luciana. They're also aware that there are other sections because of the headings that are present, the heading 2 and the heading 3. Not everybody just reads for leisure. If you were to read a novel, you might start at the first page and just say read till end. Others, if you're seeking information, maybe you're going to read this particular article, but you want to find a certain piece of information. Users of assistive technologies will navigate to documents rather than just reading from start till end. The only way they're able to navigate those is through the use of the structure that's present, the headings. They can get a quick list of all the headings and determine what section of the document contains relevant information that they're looking for and be able to jump to that. Without this structure, they'd have no means of that navigation aspect. Sure, they could do keyword searches and things like that to try and get and find their information, but it's much more cumbersome. So giving them the structure really allows ease of navigation. And likewise, web URLs. They're able to, once reading through the document, if they've come across the URL, they may not want to go there at this moment, but later they can come back. And assistive technology can give them a list of links. They can go back to that link and then jump to that location. So, providing accessible documents is much more than just being able to read them or listen to them. It's really about being able to use the document and give them access to these features. So WCAG, most everybody knows, but it's a very large set of standards that covers a vast variety of things. Again, I'm not going to get into all those details. Really, in plain English, it's really meant to indicate that documents need structure. They need your headings defined, your subheadings. All of your images should have alternative text. Your tables, when present, they need to be structured well and have respective column heads, row heads, and your attributes that indicate such. So to get into some of the fundamentals, I had mentioned that CodeMantra, we've provided services for about the last 6 years for mediating documents and assisting others to come up with plans to do so. When we started into this, we realized that it was a challenging process, and that really caused us to take the initiative to build a platform that would help and make it easier to do so, ourselves included. So when we did that analysis, we really broke it down into a handful of steps. First one is just to get the files into our product or into the platform, which is the ingest. But then we've developed object prediction, what I call to is object prediction. Objects are things that need those alternative descriptions. Your images, your charts and graphs, your equations, tables. It's not mandatory that a table have a summary. It's advised, but isn't mandatory. Complex tables absolutely should. It helps set the stage for the reader as to what they're getting ready to dive into when they enter that table and trying to navigate it to find the data that they're looking for.
Hey there, I just wanted to interject real quick. We have a couple of questions before you go any further, since you wanted me to go ahead and interrupt you. So the first is, I thought you weren't supposed to include photograph in the alt text because screen readers will read photo off.
Good catch. In my rush to prep that slide, it is that you're correct. It's not standard practice to have photo as part of the description. That it was a bit of an inappropriate alternative text because it will announce photo or image. So rather drop that and just include the information about it. It's a nice catch.
Great, thank you. That's actually, the second question is a repeat of the first, so that's perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I'll get, as I mentioned, alt text is a critical component, and I'll show you what we've done to make that easier for our service team and others as well. Really having context about why that image is there is very important, so they truly write an appropriate description. And that'll be done during that alt text phase. The other critical piece is the structure, the semantic structure and logical reading order. There's technology that can assist and help you do this. Acrobat has its own built-in, auto tag function. It gives good results sometimes, not so good results other times. Our product is the same. We get good results and sometimes not so good results. My point to those statements is the fact that human oversight is absolutely required in any process, in any method, when trying to remediate and produce accessible documents. And then ultimately your final compliance validation against the PDF UA and or WCAG standards. So with that, I'm going to switch over and actually kind of walk through some of this. This is the document that I had examples of in the slides. And there are various navigation components. The bookmarks, they don't exist in this particular document, nor does the tag tree. Tag tree is where the structure resides. and allows the user to engage and navigate and all of the things that I spoke about. If there's no structure, then there's no alternative text for any of these images either. So we've taken the flow that I spoke about, ingesting the object detection, the alt text writing, and the structuring, and then the final QA and validation, and basically built those in to the product that we offer. Prediction, again, is all about the images, finding anything that requires alternative text. In this screen, you'll see that we've identified the first two photos of these contributors, but what about this image behind the headline? In this case, it's decorative, it looks nice, but doesn't give any real value or meaning to the document. So this is an instance of an image that can be artifacted, basically hidden from use to those using the document. And the platform determined that because there's text, live text on top of it, and therefore no need for that alternative description. There are a few charts in here as well, and those do need alternative text. So the method here is, again, reviewing at this stage, make sure we capture all of the images that need these descriptions. Once that's done, then we need to write the descriptions. We've enabled an easy way for the alt text team to do that, and anyone to write the alt text. I was talking about having context for the image. We've enabled that by having the document available on the right-hand side so that they can understand why this image exists, what's the purpose, what's the intent, what information should be said about it. If you looked at an image in isolation, you could describe the image, but you wouldn't be able to truly write appropriate alt text as to why it exists, what value does it bring, and what's the meaning behind it. As we cycle through some of these, so again, like this chart, and I did write this alt text. I'm sure it could be better, and it should be better. But a true alt text writer would have access to the surrounding information and be able to give a nice description for this. I have seen many documents that just have chart or graph and things like that. That'll allow a file to get past it, like what I refer to as the mechanical checks, the machine test cases. Does a description exist or not? But it doesn't. Those machine tests don't truly validate whether it's an appropriate description. If we look at structure, a lot of people are familiar with the programs like Word and other word processing applications. They have headings, lists, all of the features to style or to format your document. And those are nice, and those are the basic structure. Our approach we took with our product is we wanted to make it about as simple as using Word. The tag structure within Acrobat can be somewhat daunting, especially for non-technical people that may not be familiar with HTML structure and the nesting that's required in some cases. And the approach we took was really identifying boxes for the chunks of content, and then indicating what that is. Is it a heading? Is it a paragraph? Or is it the figure that we identified earlier? Captions go along with figures, so it's the description for that particular figure. So structure is one aspect, or one fundamental aspect of remediation. Also is the reading order, the logical reading order that helps the user, progress through this document. So we're presenting that in these two little tabs. We have the structure on the left and then the reading order on the right. You can actually tab through and understand the sequence of this flow. Maybe, there's certain subjective decisions that need to be made. Maybe the date and year should be read first. So it's quite easy to make an adjustment and have this particular chunk of text being read first. Any content that is not intended to be read or is not necessary, just like this background image, can be artifacted. One example of that is the printed page number. Certain documents and articles have printed page numbers, and it really becomes redundant data. Most of the time, the application that the user is reading the document within will know what page they're on, and will likely have already informed them of that. So having the printed page number being read or being part of the structure becomes a redundant piece of information. And it's also challenging at times to figure out where in the reading order to place it. Not always does a page end with a nice paragraph break to where it might make sense to have a page number present. As we look at the structure and the reading order, I want to go to the last page. Has a table on it. Tables can be challenging, especially very complex tables. And this one is not. This one is a relatively straightforward and simple table. But we need to make sure that these have header cells. We've enabled an easy way to change that. We've got an inspector tool that really just allows you to have your type of content change. So we've now adjusted this to have table heads. The reading order is also important again. Need to make sure that the initial reading order is good, but users will actually navigate these as well. Not always will you just read a table from top left to bottom right. You're looking for data within this table. So you'll get in there and actually look for the information that you're seeking. That functionality is enabled through the proper tagging structure, giving the column heads, if there were row heads, and then it can traverse and actually navigate through this. Without the existence of a tabular structure, then it becomes unusable for them. Basically a long string of random information. Another aspect, so we've covered structure, we've covered reading order. Other are your document properties, your title, your authors, the document language, some keywords and subjects. A lot of this information is valuable, so when they are searching for information, they're able to get extra information through these fields. Title's an important one that I find very valuable, because whenever you're using an assistive technology and you open a document that doesn't have a title, most of the time it'll default to the file path and or file name. So it'll read some ambiguous file name that are not always descriptive as to what is contained in the document. So title is quite useful, much better than listening to a file name being recited to you. Bookmarks were the other thing that we're missing from that original document. And so we've taken the 3 levels of headings as a kind of a default or a standard. In this case, the document had 2 levels of headings, so we've captured those. Some documents have very lengthy headings, so it can be edited and revised and shortened if needed. But bookmarks are again essential feature for navigation for certain users. Once we've done the structure, the reading order, the alt text, and the document properties, we're really ready to look at now this final compliance validation. Our platform will generate a validation report. And again, these are all the mechanical tests to make sure that the structure has been applied properly, that the alt text is indeed present, that the document properties are there. Sorry, I was looking at the questions, I think. So this gives a brief summary. We have one warning. I did not do something prior to the demo, so I want to show a particular error and then be able to go back and fix that error. So here it's saying that we have a warning in document structure. Before we go there, look at the alternative text. Again, we're describing, or rather presenting, the descriptions that were written, a thumbnail of the image, all of the details for the properties. Again, this is getting kind of down into the techie aspects of it. This is all validation against the PDF UA standard, as well as the WCAG standards. In the structure, we'll notice that, again, it gave a warning about table headers, saying data tables should have header cells. So when I prepped for this, I had intentionally left out those header cells. The ones that it's referring to were these 3 that I had changed back to headings. The reason for the headings is to enable that navigation capability. Otherwise, again, this is a very straightforward and simple table, but you can imagine a complex one that has merged cells, maybe multi-column heads, and you get into those and it becomes very challenging, cumbersome for a user to really navigate that particular table. So let's see. So once that process is finished, then if we go back to Acrobat now, again, this is the original document. Had no navigation capabilities. There was no tag structure. Nothing to help the user consume this content. Once you've completed that remediation process, we now have our navigation through bookmarks. We're also able, we have now our tag structure. We have the alternative text that was provided. So now this document is much more usable and able to be navigated and consumed by anybody with an assistive technology or just read aloud. There are advantages for those that do the read aloud functionality, but as well as those using assistive technologies. We were able to do all of that without actually having to get in and deal with this tag structure. Again, those that have to provide this service know this particular area very well, but it can be daunting and challenging at times. So our approach, we tried to keep it very simple and easy to understand and easy to apply without having to know all of the technical aspects. With that, I think I'd like to open it up for questions and a bit of a discussion.
Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question. What is the name of the software?
Yeah, it's Accessibility Insight from Code Mantra. It's a cloud-based offering running on Amazon's AWS.